Get set up here, situated. Get situated here. Thing. Go. Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Bakari Lumumba back once again. The progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we can gain the competitive advantage by always betting on Black. If you're watching, make sure you hit the subscribe, like button, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. We're going to have a great conversation this evening, I believe, where we're going to be questioning and interrogating, deconstructing the whitewashing of Juneteenth. As many of us know who are in the know, Juneteenth, of course, is a celebration also known as Jubilee Day or Emancipation Day, the ending of chattel enslavement, and of course, America. However, 2 years ago, Juneteenth became a federal holiday. Some argue that this is symbolism over substance, but there's also a fear, and I actually was perusing the internet, saw that there were a number of articles written by, of course, Black people, Black-minded, of course, African Americans, and then, of course, members of the African diaspora, even continental Africans, pushing back against the whitewashing of Juneteenth. As you all saw on my cover photo, that was a picture of a Juneteenth celebration. One of the brothers I went to elementary school with actually shared that it really troubled him that there were a large number of white people at the Juneteenth celebration. So I think part of what we could do is try to unpack the fallacy of integrationism, of assimilation, right? We know oftentimes association breeds assimilation. So what does this mean when you seek to assimilate into the dominant culture and be recognized by the dominant culture? Do they take over, right? We know that there's a history of this in the Black community, as it will refer, I think some examples. One example would be Martin Luther King Day, MLK holiday, right? Oftentimes, if you go to MLK celebrations, they tend to be funded, promoted, and even what ran by white people, tend to hijack the legacy of Dr. King, promote this concept of love, right, of agape love, so on and so forth, the beloved community, but they don't focus on what his more radical and more political focus on, of course, anti-Black racism and the global nature of white hegemony, which is something he really began to focus on toward the end of his life. So they don't focus on the entirety of his political development and trajectory, but simply those that are most palatable to their own perspective. So something to be cognizant of. Also, Kwanzaa. We know Kwanzaa is an African American Pan-African holiday that celebrates the best of what it means to be African and human in the fullest sense. 7 days, 7 principles. This, of course, holiday comes out of the struggle of the 60s when African people were seeking to recapture the best of what it meant to be African and human. We call it the reaffirmation period. However, if you go to some PWI, some colleges, we tend to find they are now promoting multicultural Kwanzaas. And this takes place oftentimes because the individuals who work at the university or at the college don't actually celebrate Kwanzaa. And so they don't have a problem with oftentimes promoting a multicultural Kwanzaa, but we've never heard of a multi-Kwanzaa Hanukkah or any other culturally exclusive holiday. So something to be cognizant of when we talk about whitewashing Juneteenth. The question we're going to be asking this evening is, are white people the face of the new federal holiday? As we know, this is the newest federal holiday, Juneteenth. Many people took umbrage with Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday for a number of reasons, right? Black conservatives, Black nationalists, even Black assimilationists or integrationists. But many argue that, hey, this is symbolic. This was coming off of the killing of George Floyd. There was a push for criminal justice reform from a federal level, the end of qualified immunity. We got none of those things. We saw the pictures where the Congress took a knee in the halls of Congress wearing kente cloth. So these symbolic gestures rather than substantial political actions that actually tangibly benefit the Black community. And as a result, we're here, right? Juneteenth, we know Black people, African people in America, we've been celebrating Juneteenth for over 100 years, irrespective of if it was being recognized by the government or not. I've even took place in running, even hosting some Juneteenth celebrations. But the question we have is, the whitewashing of Juneteenth, or white people the new face of the new federal holiday. If that is the case, what does that look like? What does that mean? How do we take control of course, this holiday, with it being a federal holiday? You're going to imagine that oftentimes many cities and municipalities are going to have what city or municipality sponsored events. And so how do we seek to control the narrative, which we believe is very important here? So there's something to be cognizant of. Once again, we know this is taking place with Kwanzaa, this is taking place with MLK Day, and I even saw a clip last year, if I can remember correctly, where there was a Black woman, believe it or not, who was giving a speech about Juneteenth and was basically saying that since Juneteenth was in the month of June, we know June is Pride Month, that Juneteenth was actually a celebration of the freedom of the rainbow community. True story, actually stated this. So we see this type of push where, irrespective of what Black people are seeking to celebrate, there tends to be what a goal of trying to devalue or diminish the Black aesthetic in said celebration or movement. So definitely something we want to unpack. The link is in the description. I'll put the link in the chat momentarily, but of course we have to go over the ground rules here. Here at Lumumba Speaks. First and foremost, diversity of thought is welcome. Diversity of thought is welcome. No racial epithets of any kind can be used. This is a space for Black empowerment. We believe in the 3 N's of Black power, which is, of course, self-respect, self-defense, and that, of course, we are self-determining. Facts over feelings. So if someone provides a dissenting opinion, we want you to what? Attack the argument and not the person. And then last but not least, no fundamentally false statements. Okay, so if you tap in, you can provide your own perspective on any issue that we're going to discuss. But we want to make sure that you don't make any fundamentally false statements. As you know, this is my platform and I'm responsible for the information that's being disseminated on my platform. And I don't want to get the reputation of allowing people to come on and engage in what is known as subterfuge or deception, misinformation. So that is my take there. But then last but not least, our mission here at Lumumba Speaks is neither to exonerate or vilify, but to simply challenge conventional wisdom or re-examine what has been previously accepted as fact. So the question we're asking this evening, family, if you're watching, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Subscribe and share. Whitewashing Juneteenth, or white people the face of the new federal holiday? That is the question that we are going to be asking this evening. The link is in the description. I'm going to put the link in the chat momentarily. Put a 1 in the chat if you have been celebrating Juneteenth before it became a federal holiday in 2021. And put a 2 in the chat if you had not celebrated Juneteenth before it became a federal holiday. You definitely want to get some people's perspective there, see how familiar people are with Juneteenth. As many would argue, is the Black 4th of July. We know what our great ancestor Frederick Douglass said about the 4th of July. We call it the 4th of July. We know he gave that great speech in Rochester, New York, to the president, then president, and of course Congress, and when in which he stated that July 4th was a slap in the face to the American Negro and a representation of America's hypocrisy as a nation that promotes being the land of the free and the home of the brave. So just something to be cognizant of. We'll probably do, of course, a video there. But I'm going to put the link in the chat, family. And then hopefully we can have a great conversation this evening regarding the whitewashing of Juneteenth. As I stated before, we've seen that this is an issue with Black celebrations, particularly MLK, federal holiday. White people tend to try to hijack, of course, the legacy of Dr. King and promote this concept of him simply loving people. We've even seen this with Kwanzaa, of course, in higher education, and even in some what we would call quote unquote liberal spaces where there are multicultural Kwanzaas, really diminishes the focus on African people and our needs and desires and what we can do to accomplish said goals. And then, of course, as I said before, last year there was a Juneteenth celebration. I saw a clip on the internet where a Black woman was stating that Juneteenth, since it was in June, which is Pride Month, was actually a celebration of the liberation of rainbow people. So we're seeing this type of disrespect from all corners, some would argue. And so definitely want to make sure you all can tap in, be part of the conversation, and get your thoughts on the whitewashing of Juneteenth, or white people, the new face of the new federal holiday. Last but not least, I think we guys request, have any of you attended any Juneteenth celebrations this weekend? And if you have, what have you observed, right? So I definitely would like to hear from that as well. As I said before, a childhood friend of mine shared that he was a bit uncomfortable with the large amount of white people who were at the Juneteenth celebration. So definitely want to get you all's thoughts on that. Once again, if you're watching, subscribe, like, and share. I'm looking to have a great conversation this evening regarding whitewashing Juneteenth, or white people, the new face of the new federal holiday, right? This is always a concern, I think, when we talk about this concept of assimilation, some of the pros and some of the cons. You know, Malcolm X and his charter for the Organization of African American Unity, which of course was written a week before his unfortunate assassination. Um, he stated that assimilation, upon of course, careful review, was a system which allowed the white power structure to what use whenever it needed the skills and of course the attributes and powers of the black community and other people of color to do their bidding, right? So we want to be cognizant of that. And so part of the question would be, do we want our holidays to become federal holidays? Do we want our holidays, our celebrations to be recognized by the dominant culture, by the power structure? So once again, family, the link is in the chat. The link is in the description. Tap in, be part of the conversation, and definitely want to hear what you all have to say about this. And I'm gonna see if I can bring up this video, matter of fact. So give me one moment. Some people may think I'm capping here. Uh, let's see here. I don't know if it's gonna come up. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be able to find it because it was last year. Uh, so that's quite all right. But this is an issue that we have as a people. Matter of fact, you can see here. I'm gonna pull this up. This is a poster. It says Juneteenth, and it has a white couple on the face. So there's something to be cognizant of, right? You can see here, Juneteenth celebration features a white couple, it goes viral. So this is something to truly be concerned about, right? We're talking about the hijacking of a celebration that, of course, our ancestors took great pride in. We know W.B. Du Bois stated that we had our brief moment in the sun where we was able to celebrate our jubilee, but then unfortunately we went right back into, of course, enslavement. And what he was referring to was what we like to call retrenchment initiatives, that whenever there are real or perceived uh, instances of Black progress in America, and we could dare say throughout the world, it's followed by a period of racial retrenchment. And that retrenchment that Du Bois was speaking of was a system of social control known as sharecropping. So we had our moment in the sun where we were able to celebrate our Jubilee. Of course, that's the end of chattel enslavement in America of African peoples. But then we went really right back into enslavement, and that enslavement was known as sharecropping, right? And sharecropping was all about black codes. Black codes consisted of vagrancy laws, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, Jim Crow. Some people are even arguing we have the new Jim Crow. Shout out to Michelle Alexander. And then, of course, Jane Crow as well, right? So Jim Crow and Jane Crow. So something to be cognizant of. But once again, family, want you all to tap in, be part of the conversation where we're discussing whitewashing Juneteenth, or white people the face of the new federal holiday. And once again, if you can, put a 1 in the chat if you have celebrated Juneteenth prior to it becoming a federal holiday, and put a 2 in the chat if you have never celebrated Juneteenth, if you have not had not celebrated Juneteenth prior to it becoming a federal holiday in 2021. Once again, you're watching Lumumba Speaks here on YouTube. And then, of course, would love to hear about even some of the African-inspired or African Black cultural celebrations in the Caribbean, right? Known as also the Carnival, right? There's been some conversations regarding white people tending to try to interject themselves into those cultural spaces and almost hijack those celebrations as well. So we got some brothers and sisters from the Caribbean, from South America, and from the continent. We definitely would like for you all to tap in as well. As I stated, one of the articles that I read was by a Nigerian American that was speaking out on and exposing the whitewashing of Juneteenth. So definitely want you all to tap in, be part of the conversation. As I stated before, the link is in the chat and the link is in the description. We want to have a conversation regarding whitewashing Juneteenth. Are white people the face of the new federal holiday? We could touch on should we want Black holidays, Black celebrations to be federally recognized by the government? If that is the case, is that a catch-22? What do we lose, of course, by doing so, getting that acknowledgement? And then, of course, last but not least, how do we push back against, of course, the sanitizing of a Black revolutionary holiday, right? So those are some of the questions we want to pose, we want to ask. Hopefully you all can tap in. Like I said before, the link is in the chat. The link is in the description. Um, Thought this was a great conversation to have based on, of course, text I got from a childhood friend, and of course, doing some Google research and seeing there were a number of individuals who had written articles on the whitewashing of Juneteenth. A number of our brothers and sisters took extreme umbrage, right, with white people tending to try to dominate, of course, the Juneteenth celebrations. I remember there's a time where I was creating a dalliance with a sister from Botswana, and she talked about how globally she experienced white people whenever they went somewhere, they showed up and act like they owned the place. And so we'd love to hear from you all and see if this is something that you all have witnessed out here in the streets as we're celebrating June. This is Juneteenth weekend, as you all know, and I also want to give a shout out to all the Black men out there who are fathers. Happy Father's Day. But definitely want to get your thoughts on the whitewashing of Juneteenth, all white people, the face of the new federal holiday. As I said it before, this is something that we've seen before. And we know they state that if you don't learn your history, you're bound to repeat it. We've seen this, of course, with the Dr. King holiday. Dr. King became a federal holiday. And then as a result, what ended up transpiring is oftentimes if you attend a Dr. King celebration, it's extremely watered down, milk toast, as some would say. There's a focus simply on that he loved everyone and he had a dream, but there isn't any conversation regarding his awakening, as some would argue, where he became aware of the global nature of white hegemony and anti-Black racism, particularly the insidious effects of global capitalism and American imperialism, right? And that's one of the reasons why he spoke out against the Vietnam War, but also Dr. King's advocacy of Black economic nationalism, taking a page from one Marcus Garvey. We know that when Dr. King went to Jamaica to write a book, he stated he visited Marcus Garvey's grave and said that he was the first Black man in history to lead a mass movement to teach us to have respect and pride for ourselves. So Dr. King definitely was someone who was aware of Black nationalism. Of course, we know that because he was a contemporary of Malcolm X, but also someone who was aware of history, of course, citing and invoking the wisdom of one Marcus Garvey by advocating for economic nationalism in the last speech that he ever gave, which was entitled, we know it as I've Seen the Mountaintop, right? So there's just something to be cognizant of there. But then, of course, Kwanzaa is an issue, right? Many of you who have gone to college, if you've attended a PWI, we know there's a whole other conversation that we can have about PWIs, which I think we will do. But we tend to find even at PWIs when there are Black celebrations, particularly Kwanzaa or P-Kwanzaa celebration, we've seen many administrators, Black and white, oftentimes seek to try to have a multicultural Kwanzaa. I would argue that much of that comes from the fact that the administrators don't celebrate Kwanzaa themselves and don't actually know what Kwanzaa is. And I would dare say that that may be the same thing that's taking place here today with us seeing this proliferation of course, white people gaining it. I see you, Brother Wisdom Never Speaks. I'm going to let you in a hot second, trying to saturate a Juneteenth celebration that celebrates, of course, the liberation struggle of African people here in America, but more importantly, marks an end, quote unquote, an end to chattel enslavement in America. Wisdom Never Speaks, brother. What's the word? Are you there, brother? Can't hear you. All right. You're not muted, but I don't know if you're speaking or not. But if you can hear me, you can go right ahead.
Hold on. I'm trying to. Yeah, I got a background. I'm almost mobile phone. How you doing?
I'm doing quite all right, brother. How are you?
I'm great. You can't hear me?
Yes, I can. Just fine.
Oh, okay. All right. I got it backed up here.
Well, I don't hear anything, so we're good on my end. I don't hear any background noise.
Okay, now you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, how you doing? How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Happy Father's Day to you, brother.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. And the same to you as well. I
Appreciate it.
happen to be driving. I said I'm at least log in and listen.
No
Uh,
doubt, no doubt.
the thing about this is, from my opinion,
Hmm.
okay, anytime you allow white folk to give you a day, they have the right and feel like they have the right to moderate how it is to be narrated in the long run. It's a long end game for them. So those that were celebrating long before that, doing it their way. I heard a lady from Atlanta today saying,
Go ahead, brother. So I would tap in. I think you're making a great point. Malcolm X always talked about progress. And he always stated that progress is not someone giving you something or doing something for you, because anytime someone gives you something, they could take it away. Right. So Malcolm talked about that. But we also know on the other end that we've had people, brothers and sisters, friends and enemies, some would even argue, right? But generations of African people in America who have been celebrating Juneteenth for over 100 years. So we almost see ourselves, many of our people, in a liminal space in terms of how do we carry on the tradition in this new age and era in which it's being recognized as a federal holiday. Brother, are you still there? So hopefully he could tap back in. Think he's going to tap back in, but that's a great question that he brings up, a great issue that he brings up. So I would of course ask that question to the audience of, so how do we, carry on tradition, control the narrative, um, even though Juneteenth is now a federal holiday that's being recognized by the entire country and oftentimes being oversaturated by what some people would argue are them folks, right? So once again, the link is in the chat, family. The link is also in the description. Tap in, share your perspective. You're watching Lumumba Speaks here on YouTube, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. Yes,
"Can you
sir.
hear me now?"
I hear
Okay,
you. I hear
great.
you just fine.
Okay, wonderful. What I was saying is that a lot of people that were celebrating Juneteenth long before it was issued as a holiday,
Hmm.
uh, then they was one doing the narrative of it. They were,
Right.
because it was ground roots, it was home to
Right.
home, whatever. But once there's a holiday given, like even with Martin Luther King,
Hmm.
the King Day, as much as they hated him in the end of what his mind shift was, they want to celebrate and keep you calm by he was non-violent and he was loving,
Right.
and it's a narrative to keep you subtle and not being in your warrior spirit.
Right.
Juneteenth then becomes less in, let's get over the culture, because we in the long run we are going to tell the narrative the way we want to. So that symbolism of holidays, when they grant it, then they can narrate it. What are you going to do? As
Hmm.
long, and it still come back to two things. You're not teaching stuff in the home as a community. Your community is broken. We're no longer a community. We're just hoods and neighborhoods. And when you vote for the same people, you're going to get the same things.
Hmm.
And there's nothing you're going to be able to do about it as long as you keep doing that, because why? Your vote seeds them in power. If you don't have money to buy the politicians to get what you want, you're going to get the same things as a people, because why? They lump you into everything else. There is nothing given
Yes.
that's just for Black folk. Kamala
Right.
Harris said that.
Right.
All the
Yes. Yes. She
presidents
sure
before
did. She
you
sure
say
did.
that. They
She sure did.
always say that. And
Now,
so
if I
when
remember
June,
correctly, she was being interviewed. This was
yes,
during the campaign. Now, I'm trying to go back
yes,
because it's been some years, and they
yes.
asked her, "Would you do something specifically for the African American community?" And she almost was offended by the question. If I'm
You know,
right, if I'm
no, no, just like that. Oh no, not because whatever we do for Black people. Listen to what she said, because they always say this, but she said it direct words. Whatever we do for Black people will benefit all of America. Whatever we do for black people will benefit all of America. So anytime they try to give you something, it's in the benefit of others more than yourself. You're just a catalyst. You are the
Right.
leverage because you're more emotional to respond to things. If they tell you something's negative, you'll be the one that's out front beating the drums while they're giving everybody else what they really want or need. It's just like that apology this person gave at the White House for taking off showing their transitional breast.
What
In the
the?
apology, she says, well, and also to my black trans in the community, because y'all are the most violence against and all, something like that. She said, why is it every time you do something, you threw the black people in? Because if they give you a pass, then you okay to do what you will. So with the holiday now, the Juneteenth, most people never even knew what it was, what it
Right.
stood
Hold on,
for,
hold on, quick.
anything.
I'm going to play the video real quick. I'm gonna say what fair use, because I don't want to get a hit on my account.
But there's not a particular policy for African Americans that you would explore.
But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit Black children, Black families, Black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this: any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No, because whatever benefits that Black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country.
See, I told you.
I mean,
I
that's
told you.
cringeworthy, man. That's cringeworthy, man.
But I mean, think about it. Everything they do, even the people that don't even vote for them, still get what they want. Every community. And when you go back to when you brought up about the pride being in the month of June, they already knew when they gave the symbolism for Juneteenth how hard they was going to push pride. They
Mhm.
already knew this. It started back with Obama, and they already knew what month to give them. Even though they said they've been celebrating Pride Month for a long time in June, it was nothing national about it. So once we give you Black people something, you can't say when we give it to someone else, even if it's on the day one, it's a whole month that involve your one day.
Mhm.
How dare you say anything?
Right.
You know, so that's why they mean, if anything they wrap into, like even with what they call that, affirmative action, it was
Mhm.
the white women that benefited the most.
Right.
It was
Correct.
had nothing to do. Then they start using Oriental people and things like that. So they use a policy that they say for Black people to make them feel good, but they don't really truly benefit.
Right.
Even with the rainbow, all that stuff, guess what happens? The Black violence, the Black trans, gays, and all that in that community, the violence come within that community against them.
So break that down for me.
They use them to say, okay, they get them on board because they're emotional about everything, because they set it up as Black people are most unreceiving of gay people, which is not correct. Is
Right.
that you was loved and appreciated, people knew who you were, but you never disrespected your community and your people.
Right.
They loved you as who you are, as long as you respected who you were, lived your life, and not pushed your life on anyone, not try to
Right.
trick anyone. So they try to say you was rejected only when you try to push. So what they do is they'll use the blackface to get what they want. But there's a lot of people in that community, and when the Blacks really tell the truth, they are really prejudiced against. They don't get the funding that community gets. That don't trickle down even in that community. It does not.
This is true. Yes.
And
This is
when
true.
you
I've
look
had some
at
conversations.
when you look at the ones that they're putting forward, the most verbal, the most bullying ones, they are white. Now, when something happens, there's a black person they want to speak about it.
Mm.
But really look at the ones that's really out front, they're all white. They truly are. The Mulvaney's with the Bud Lights, the thing at the White House, all these ones are white. They're not pushing any blackface of that community, but they'll have them speak up about it when they talking about violence and crime. And the problem is, it's just like even with Juneteenth, you're talking about Kwanzaa, a lot of stuff when the people that was at the ground roots of trying to teach this and do it neighborly, a lot of black folks rejected it because it wasn't seen on the stage and approved by white folk.
You know what? Hold on, I got to say this. We had the same issue with Kwanzaa. So I think I shared with you before on my channel. I've been celebrating Kwanzaa since I was like, what, 22. When I first found out about it, I jumped head in. And we would have black people who would take issue with Kwanzaa because literally they would say, well, there going to be any white people there.
See?
Like if white people were there, then this meant it was official and I'm willing to come. So this is a major issue we have. When we said, hey, we're doing this for ourselves, this is grassroots, so on and so forth, people didn't want to show up. So that is a major issue when we talk about the psychology of the black mind, in which it still seeks consciously or unconsciously what? White validation.
Yeah. So the Juneteenth itself is not being whitewashed. Martin Luther King Day has not been whitewashed. It is the mind that has already been captured and whitewashed a long time ago.
Okay.
And it's generational.
Yes, we could agree to that. We could agree to that.
It's generational. Yeah, until they stick a stamp of approval on it, you're not going to go do it because you think you're slapping them in the face and you still want to be approved and loved by them at all levels. I say this all the time, and they won't. It's the same thing religiously and everything. You will not go in depth with even your African religion that was long before this Christianity, because you feel like it's not something that you was taught by your grandparents that you feel that you're moving away from. It's white people. It's the white Jesus effect that subconsciously is just buried there. So it's the same thing with this. They look. You brought up July 4th, okay?
Yes.
All the holidays they given, we spend more money on the holidays to celebrate those things that truly oppressed us. Even with Memorial Day, I'm a veteran, all that stuff. But we know a lot of them got killed, spat on, and everything else once they got through saving lives for this country.
Right.
They was never appreciated, even though they fought from every war. And we have to stop beating our chests about what we did when the we of today did nothing. Think about what I'm saying. The we of today did nothing. We can talk about those of yesteryear that went through it to make things better for you, but yet you refuse to accomplish. You refuse to do it. They did things understanding where they were.
Right.
So when they fought, they knew they could also die. They could lose.
Let me ask you this. What would you say to someone who said, we fought? Because I've heard this. We fought to be recognized as Americans, so we should celebrate this holiday as Americans.
Well, let me respond this way. We sick, boss.
Gotcha. You know, and the reason I brought that up, I brought that to my class because Whoopi Goldberg and Raven Simone had said that, and I told him, I said that's the half truth. There was some black people who were assimilationists, but I said if you look at the history of African American political thought in the black community, the majority of black people, all the way up until what I would argue was the civil rights movement, were black nationalists and Pan-Africanists in their political orientation and worldview.
Yes.
So the goal was not to be American. The goal was to be recognized as a human being by maintaining one's blackness and Africanity.
But I'm gonna tell you the real truth behind that question. I know I answered it the way I answered it, but let me. This is how I respond to people when they bring up about we fought in all the wars.
Mhm.
And the earlier wars, you had no choice. About all the wars, and you would start being drafted.
Mhm.
You had no option but to go to fight.
Right, and they was putting us on the front lines because
Yes,
what?
yes,
Because we were seen as expendable. And I'm not talking about
yes.
Sylvester Stallone, a Sylvester Stallone movie.
Right. So what people don't understand, the draft was long term up until probably the 70s before the
Hmm.
draft itself. Like early 70s, late 60s, they was drafting a lot of our people that fought in all those wars. And then after the wasn't the draft, the way the neighborhoods were cut through, the poverty set up, that's the one way they figured they could recruit you to make a living.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know this because when I was in the service, if you go home on leave, if you serve a week in a recruiting station, they don't count your leave against you.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, that's what they said. They was like, hey, we're not going, we're going to go to the economically depressed areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they did it for, because most of them either couldn't afford college, they was taking away some of the manufacturing jobs slowly, and so therefore the armed services, especially with men, was the way to get them to say to earn a paycheck and earn a living.
Hmm.
And then you may not made it back if they put you in active duty. But it was first a draft or ownership as property when the enslaved period. So either way, you was forced into war. So you didn't just say, "Hey, I'll go fight for the other slaves." You didn't say, "Oh, I'll go fight for America." America made you fight for America, who still didn't recognize you with anything expendable property because you were still owned. So they can go on with that stuff about we fought in every war. No, but you still wasn't appreciated for the war. You was still property. You was
Right. I
forced
mean,
into war. One way or the other, you was forced into war for this country who came back. You never said, you never want to address the killings, the hangings, the spitting on, the beatings and all that while in uniform, just coming off a bus or plane. No one want to address that when you bring that
right,
up. You don't want to
right.
address that. You know, we got to stop beating our chests about we built this country. We who? They gonna tell you now. I say this: well, the Spanish people are rebuilding the country. The Latinos are rebuilding the country. Look around every construction, every cleaning, everything you're doing. They are the rebuilders of the country. That's why That's why Biden even says that all the immigrants come over here. They're building the country. Black folks said we built. What are you doing now to build your people?
Right.
Because
And
if you can't do
that's
that, what country you're in doesn't matter.
that's
What
something
they did before you. Go
that's
ahead.
something that I've mentioned, that we tend to find black people who do things to the benefit of the country are praised, but black people who do things to the benefit of black people oftentimes are dismissed, swept under the rug, and paid
Yes,
no attention.
yes, yes, yes. Because doing something for the country does not benefit the people.
But no, it doesn't. It doesn't. So yeah, and
You
that's
know.
why that statement by Kamala Harris is a misnomer,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's
Mm-hmm.
deception. A great example would be Stacey Abrams. She registered all
Mm-hmm.
these black people to vote for the Democratic Party. Well, how did it
Mm-hmm.
benefit black people? It
It
did.
benefits
She
the
did all these organizing for a white supremacist organization.
it benefits them to get symbolism to make them feel good. Remember, black people, most of them that vote from emotion because all they got to do is scream racism by the opponent. No matter
Right.
who the opponent is, scream racism. Scream they're gonna take away all your your entitlements. Scream that you're gonna have food stamps. Scream that you're gonna have nothing. Versus the opposition saying, yeah, we may take that away, but we're trying to make sure you get jobs, get college. We want you to be self-sufficient. Why do you need the government to keep taking care of you? They don't want that accountability. So
Right.
now you can't be mad if you rejected Juneteenth and Kwanzaa and everything else for years. And then when the white man says, hey, we giving you this holiday, now you go out and spend the money with them and you mad if they become the face of it. Well, it's their holiday they gave it to you. It's not the one that you should be really celebrating. And you don't have to go and do that. And one lady said, my issue is that everybody now gets to be off on the day that's supposed to be just for us.
Mm.
And I said, well, it is a federal holiday.
Holiday.
It is given for that reason. Now, there are a lot of businesses won't close.
Right.
Okay. They're not going to honor that. But guess what? The people that are federally chartered, banks and all these things, post office, they have to close because
Right.
they get paid for it.
Yeah.
So and then you're working in corporate America, you will be off and get paid for it, but you'll go spend more money to celebrate. So what the white folk would do, and the Asian people, all them that have businesses, they will start advertising for your day to make you feel good, but they're making all your money.
Facts.
You have to follow the money. So when you jump out here and you do all the celebration like today in Atlanta, I saw a little live on that, and that's when the lady said, we never had these many people turn out every year we've done this, but now there's a holiday. Now all of them want to come out because they've been told that it's okay. It's okay to celebrate your blackness. It's okay to celebrate anything about slavery. We're allowing you this by putting it on a pen, just like we didn't want you celebrating Martin until we allowed it. And this is what's so really sad about it. We never really have anything on the days that it's given. Don't you think about that? We celebrate on all the off days. We'll do a Martin Luther King parade on a Saturday. We're doing the Juneteenth on Sunday. But every other holiday that's really considered their days are done on the day. The fireworks, everything they are done on that day, no matter what day of the week it falls on. But if it's every first Monday, third Monday, whatever, they're going to have a celebration for that day itself. We always doing it on the odd day, never on that day. We don't never really do it that way.
So why do you
That's
think
by
that
design.
is?
It's by design that they give you approval to do it because some of the city ordinances won't let you formulate, or you got it like here in the North Carolina Charlotte area, they do it over where they march it over there by the Black College down, but it's not held downtown like every other day. That's a national holiday. They don't have major parades and things downtown. You have to do it over there in your black neighborhood. You have certain streets you have to do. Pay attention. And that's probably every city. They're going to give you a place that look more like your hood to march on. But you can't do it in the main city.
But
Now,
so let
Pride,
me
they
ask
can
you
do
this.
it everywhere.
But should we want? And if you're watching, family, link is in the chat, link is in the description. Tap in, be part of the conversation. But should we want it there? Right?
If we're doing it from grassroots, we should stay that way. We shouldn't have never even wanted the holiday itself.
Well, to be honest with you, there weren't black people advocating for it. This was a symbolic.
I know. I know.
So,
I
yeah.
know. You know why? Do you really know why they were?
Go ahead.
Because they wanted to have some stamp for Joe Biden, the reason why they voted for him.
I felt it was to pacify people in the wake of George Floyd.
No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. That was some of the stuff that when they was calling for the criminal justice and all that stuff. But the holiday itself was Biden gave us something, so therefore that's why we voted for him, because he knew we can vote for him again, and we won't have to be questioned on what have he done for black people. Now we can say Juneteenth.
Well, yeah,
Because for George Floyd, it was criminal justice reform and all that. That didn't happen.
Right.
So that wasn't why it was given.
Mm-hmm.
It was given to quieten you, yes. But in the long run, when you had the ones you talking about, the blacks advocating for the holiday, it was to justify the vote for that ticket. They always come up with something symbolic. So we now have to do another symbolism for them. And then we look like the party that really loves them.
Hmm.
That was separate from George Floyd now.
Right. But I'm
Most people
saying
thought it had something to do with
many
it.
people, many argue that it was used as to pacify. So that,
Yeah, but it wasn't just, but see, that happened to roll together. But remember, they start questioning this administration. All of us that talked about before you give away your vote, ask for something in return, and they go, well, then we just got to get the orange man out of office. And then when all the questions started happening, we got to do something because it wasn't about Floyd, it was about the uptick, them questioning this administration, not doing anything for those after. They did the crime bill, they're doing the crime bill. All these things was given by people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what made the uprising started happening. So they had to give them something, and they know it was not going to give them police reform.
And you're breaking up.
Then
You're
with the
breaking up
man,
on me.
can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, it looked for some it might have looked like that, but it really wasn't because they would have addressed the police reform. They would have addressed those things
Oh,
in the wake of Floyd.
I don't think neither party is going to address police reform.
Right,
Neither
because it's
party.
not that's not their design. The police is there for a reason from way back in the day, the slave catching.
Right. So yeah,
So
neither party is going to do that. They might make some
right,
concessions with sentencing, but then you still going to have that felony on your record. Okay, you can spend half the time in prison, but you're still going to be a felon.
mm-hmm,
Right. So once
mm-hmm.
again, I always tell people when it comes to the criminal justice system, the best way to deal with that is to not get involved.
Yeah,
As I
or if
tell
not, you
folks,
better really learn it. You better really
as I tell
learn it.
people, it's not hard to not commit a felony. It's not difficult to not
No,
commit a felony. It's particularly if you're not a criminal, if you don't live a criminal lifestyle.
remember what you was talking about, the Jim Crows and whatever those laws were they were using to get you.
Right.
So they have them there for a reason, and you're going to be the perpetrator of it, whether you think you are or not. They're going to make sure you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it works.
Right.
Or
So
they'll get
family,
a different sentencing. And I'm going to tell you this thing right quick. If you really wanted something to change, you should attack that 13th Amendment.
right.
But because you can't have prison reform if the 13th Amendment still make you a slave, because that's
Yes,
the
you
one
go to
reason
prison. Yes.
that you're going to
Yes.
predominantly go as a people. This
Yes.
is why you don't see many white folks in the prison system on a state level. They do federal stuff most of the time. And it's
Mm-hmm.
minimized because they will be considered slaves by the 13th Amendment.
Right.
So this is why they're going to rush you through the system for a loaf of bread, even though they made sure you were starving, and then
Right.
give you a job or fired you, or whatever the case may be. The two-parent household, whatever you want to say, systematic happens, but there's still no excuse for us being as divided and separate as we are. We got to stop using. We know those things are there, but there's other people still progressing in the midst of that.
Right.
You're getting ready to be a PhD in the midst of that. You understand what I'm saying? There are people progressing. That don't mean they escaped anything, but they're
Right.
still leveraging what they know and moving forward in the midst of knowing these things are in place.
Absolutely.
But there are so many people always talking about, well, this is what happened. Okay, we get it. We know what may still happen. We know things are in place. We know neither party is going to do anything that's totally benefit us. That's direct. Because why? We don't demand it. You'll still
Well, no,
spend your money.
I would disagree. Even when we do demand it, they
Demand it with your dollars. Demand it and stop being part of all their stuff. Demand it.
well,
In other
but here's
words, not by marching.
no, I get that. I'm not even talking about marching, but even because of the global nature of the economy, even a boycott would not put a dent in the economy because most American companies are multinational in nature. So, for
Let me
example,
help you with that. I get that. But this is the issue we have. When you operate, now that you're more global, yes, you're going to have a more harder time than the boycott of the 60s.
right,
But what you can do, what we can do, is now going to our African countries and companies ran by our people. And that's where we want to put our trade dollars with. If we start doing that and our local people here start creating that, we're still doing global, but they're saying, wait a minute, they're going to build up Africa countries. They don't want that either.
Right.
That relationship of monetary exchange also bring about communication and conversation. And we start learning more about each other, what we have in symbol of whether the enslaved here or the colonized there.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff that's been kept separated. Once you start doing monetary exchange on a regular basis, conversations now become knowing each other more.
Right.
That's what I mean about. I mean, you can't just say boycott and they got 100 million customers worldwide.
Right. Like that. It's not going to accomplish anything.
But you change the way you operate your money.
Right. And the reason why I brought that up is because historically, not only just in America but globally, what we find is that when Black people have real or perceived progress, it's followed by a period of entrenchment. Right.
Yeah.
So
and that's why you have to make the shift.
Right. You know, you could do all the boycotting you want. There are certain concessions they aren't going to make. A great example is what? They gave you the right to vote. Then the minute they gave it to you, they try to find the ways to take it back. That's just the nature of the beast, right? The empire is always going to strike back. So I think we need to be cognizant of that, right? Right. We talk about affirmative action. Oh, you know what? We know this, right? We talk about critical race theory and this concept of interest convergence, and that the power structure only engages in what is seen as what? Progressive civil rights or racial acts when it only benefits themselves in the long term.
Correct. This is why there was, you remember when originally they was talking about reparations some years ago. And I'm sitting at a table, we talking, that came up, and two of the white guys that was in the room says, we want them to do reparations. And so they thought they was for Black people. And they said, no, we know that within 6 months, 90% of all the money would be back into every white-owned business. So we want the government to give that free money to them because it'll make us richer. That's what they said. They knew that within 6 months, 90% of any reparation money, the way most people do finances in the Black people, they will be buying the cars, the clothes, the shoes, the things like that. And so they knew they was going to be richer from reparations. And so that's what most people don't understand. So if you got people saying, yeah, we back to reparations. No, they're backing the money coming to them.
Well,
so Juneteenth is the same thing. Juneteenth is a way to make money.
Well, irrespective of that, that's on us to make sure we use that money properly. But no other group. But no other group is going to say, hey, we shouldn't get something because we don't think we're going to spend it right.
No. I'm not saying we shouldn't get anything. I'm saying when you hear them voting for pushing it, it's for them in the long run, just like the Juneteenth. Anything else they do is going to benefit them to support you. Right. That's what you were just saying. Anything they do is long run is to benefit them. So they may look like they're giving something, but they know how to get it back.
Right.
So that's why I said they have to be mindful of those even supporting reparations, because they're looking for the money to come back, because we have not shown the ability, majority wise, to be financially literate with the way we do the money, investments, move it a different way. Yes, it's on us to do that. Now, the ones that talk about, well, we need to put it into this program, into that program. No, you controlling the money then again.
Right.
So even if they misspend it, at least give it to them. You know, and these are Black people doing this, talking about some, well, we need programs. No, you want to sit on the board and enrich yourself.
Right.
But like I said, a lot of people, we know and we agree that they've rejected the Juneteenth and the Kwanzaa when it was grassroots. But now they had the stamp of approval by White Zaddy. They're going to celebrate it to the hilt.
Yeah, this is true.
No meaning for them.
I remember this is like 08, 09, and we had the Juneteenth celebration back in my hometown, Dayton, Ohio. Shout out to the 937 Gym City. And I'm going around trying to get people to come, and it was like pulling teeth. Literally, it was like
Look,
pulling teeth to
for
get
some of
people.
them, it's a root canal. What you talking about? Just pulling
Yeah,
the tooth? That's a
root
root
canal.
canal.
But
That's
now, shit.
white man said I can go and do it, and he ain't gonna look bad at me because he told me I can go do it. I can go celebrate now. He's okay with it. That's what they're saying in their
That's the
subconscious. Don't even
mindset.
realize it. Yeah, but that's what they're saying without verbalizing it. It's in your actions, not in your words.
Yeah.
It's always in the action. And I had a conversation with someone else. A lady was talking about something happened in their family, and I said, well, and then on this conversation, I think you had a show on it too, but I didn't make it. But about if we talking about whitewashing, we talking about the family structure as well. And a lot of people love to say you can't help who you love.
Oh,
And
here
I
we go.
always,
Here we go.
yeah, I'm going there.
Here we go.
I said that's a choice. No, it's not. I said, no, you can't help how somebody make you feel, but you sure can help who you love and fall in love with. Why do I say that? Because love in and of itself is an action word. It is not a feeling like happiness or sadness. Its joy is a state of being. It is not a feeling either. But love is an action word. So let's say this. You have 5 children, and you might say, I love them all the same, but you do more for 2 of them than you do for all 5. Then you do not love them the same. You view them all as your children, but your actions determine your love. It really does. The same with kids coming back to the parents. They do more in their actions for one, but they'll say they love them both. So
Right.
you can say that. So I go with this. If you got the equal person, if you go out here and say, oh no, I fell in love with this white guy, this white woman, or whatever, I couldn't help it. Okay, how much time did you spend developing that? How much action did you give behind it? Just because they made you feel good, you chased the feeling. You know there's some other issues that go on that come with that, whatever's happening. But you still say you love or in love. So love is an action. So what you put behind. So like one of my sons said, yeah, Pops, I love you. But the other one said, Pops, I love you. And he says, okay, you need anything? What can I come and do? I got, it's not just that I love you and that's it.
Right.
So I'm not saying you don't love me in theory, but what are you doing? Are you coming by and say, hey, can I help you do something? If I call you, you're going to pretty much you're going to make time, or you're going to pick up the phone. I shouldn't have to wait 2 or 3 days to hear from you. See, love is action. And it's not just saying, I love you. And most people don't even say they just say love you. They don't even say
Right.
I and you. It's love ya, YA. So, but you can help that. Just like with these celebrations, you could have helped when Lumumba went by. He didn't have to feel like he was a dentist. Got to ask you to get them rotten teeth out your mouth. He just said, come celebrate Juneteenth. Understand more about it. But he felt like being a neighbor and a brother, he was more of a dentist to you. And he had a white coat on, stethoscope, and some pliers in his hand. Because that's how you responded. Like, this man gonna give you a root canal. And a lot of people went through that. A lot of them. Until it's approved by what they call the financial dominant society, how they run it. You won't do anything. And that's why I always say we are sick people. We're really sick and don't even realize we're sick in our mental state. And they'll fight you tooth and nail when you question them on it. And they'll think all their thoughts are their own, and they don't know it's been time over time, years over years, decade over decades being programmed to you, because it was passed to you in your family settings a lot of times, in your neighborhoods. It was passed that way. It's the uncomfortable that can get you right. It's that uncomfortable you don't want to get to, because it'll make you admit all the stuff that you believed that wasn't factual.
Right.
No matter how, you don't want to get there because it'll mess you up. It really
Right.
will mess a lot of people up.
So family, if you're watching, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Also, hit that super chat. Hit that super chat. Support the channel. Also, if you're watching, we're discussing whitewashing Juneteenth, or white people, the new face of the new federal holiday. Tap in. The link is in the chat. I'll put the link in the chat once again, as well as the link is in the description. We'd love to get some people's perspectives on Juneteenth, particularly the whitewashing of Juneteenth. We've seen some clips where Juneteenth, there have been posters with white couples on the Juneteenth poster. We've even seen situations where white people, according to some, have oversaturated the celebrations. And so part of the conversation we're having now, Alpha Male, appreciate you. If you want to tap in, go ahead, and the link is there. And so part of the conversation we're seeking to have is how do we combat this issue? We've seen this before, of course, MLK Day. We've seen this even with Kwanzaa, particularly at the university level, at PWIs, where there tends to be a push to what? Make African and Black people, okay, so this guy's trolling, but nobody give a damn about you being white, man. Right, the guy's saying, I made a apologize for being white. Don't nobody give a damn about that. Well, we've had this issue of
you can be white but be factual.
Right. Don't care about your race ethnicity. Right.
Yeah, we don't care about that.
Yeah,
Let's be factual.
right.
That's all.
Yeah.
It's a conversation.
You got us confused with somebody else.
Yeah. One way to combat. Let me say this real quick. One way to combat it is when they having the thing, they're sponsoring it and they're posting up. Don't show up to theirs.
Right.
Only do your own stuff.
Yeah,
don't go
right.
to their stuff. They
I would agree with that.
That's the one thing you do with it.
Yes.
Let them, if they want to celebrate, and then somebody go out and say, well, I thought Juneteenth was, well, yeah, so where's the Black people? Oh, I guess they're doing their own thing. That's how you stop it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you combat it. And they're going to keep trying until they stood. But what they'll do next, let's say you did that. Don't be surprised they have a major pride thing right up around that Juneteenth coming up the next year. If you combat and don't go to their stuff, they'll use pride as one of those things. And then you don't show up for that. They'll see the Black people who's at the pride. I told you your people didn't love you. It's a mind game.
Absolutely.
But the way you do it is keep doing your ground root celebration and don't do nothing. Don't go to anything that they sponsor. That's the way it has to happen. But for those that need to be seen by them, they will be there anyway.
Absolutely.
So that's how you won't ever get it.
Absolutely. Oh, see, I was here to celebrate and love everyone, embrace everyone, so I'm safe, I'm not dangerous, so on and so forth. And I think that's a major issue that oftentimes a lot of Black people are. There's a fear that, hey, they won't like me, they won't accept me, if they see that I'm too Black. And we know Black people are only people who are seen as being too much of themselves. We've never seen someone say they're too German, they're too Irish, they're too Italian, they're too British, they're too French, they're too Spanish, they're too Portuguese, they're too Chinese. But we're the only people who are seen as too Black.
Because they're after your energy. You're the original human, the only true human, and your energy is it's just like a bear in the woods. Until they attack if they feel threatened by the presence of something or someone. So your energy in and of itself, when you arrive, it's already a threat. So they're after to capture your energy. That's why you're too much of yourself, because you're the original. And they got to keep trying to dilute you one way or the other.
Yeah, try. They want us to shrink ourselves. So, and the thing about it is, it isn't just white folk, right? We talk about non-Black people of color.
Always,
they engage in anti-Blackness as well, and so they have sometimes have those same expectations. In fact, there's a great article by Dr. Sweet, I can't recall his first name, entitled "The Iberian Roots of American Racism," where he chronicles and highlights that Arabs were actually historically went into Europe and taught anti-Blackness to Europeans.
They did. So, they was original slavers too.
Right. So when we talk about this issue, I like to look beyond the white gaze. And I'm gonna do a show on the white gaze as well. So hopefully you could tap into that.
If we don't do that, we'll still stay with the same old narrative. While the other people are doing the same, they're being taught to do it to us as well. And
Right.
they're doing it on a level where they're also protected against when we retaliate or we don't like it. So they're getting protections long before they really get too overt. Okay. But we have to be cognizant of stop try. Dr. Claude Anderson said it. We cannot fight everybody. And this is what's happening. So what happened is you got too many want to try to assimilate into those cultures, those races. So, and we need to stop saying people of color because we're not people of color.
Right.
We
I
might
agree.
be people
I
of
agree.
different shades, but we're not people of color.
I agree.
And when
I'm
they
not
lump
saying
you
I'm not
in,
saying
that
that's
falls
good.
back into Kamala Harris's statement. It benefits everybody else. Because as long as you got the pundits of black people, we're people of color. No. Those are the other people. And if we don't start changing the way we say that, they're gonna always do that. Because then you can't never be separate but equal. Because that people of color thing gonna be the same as some of the stuff written in affirmative action. You see. So we have to stop that. Because people of color does not get the same level of treatment as carbonated melanated folk. It does not happen. So you're trying to lump us in to give them a bill and you never give us any protections. You never, all the people of color
Mhm.
got some type of protection or laws for them except for black folks, as they call them. African people, because the black folk mean dead, so to them we're dead as long as we use that term anyway. But we use it in a way people understand it. But the point I'm making is that if we don't become responsible and reliant, all we're gonna do is help murder off our people by way of policies, by way of celebrations and things of that nature. And what they don't understand is they're hating themselves so much that they hate each other. They're not hating because you look like them. They hate it because they've gotten themselves so mentally under that spell and brainwashing that fighting against it hurts them more. So they rather take it out on their own people because it's easier. It's easier. So let me go over here and celebrate to be approved than to celebrate my other people. And then I got to be questioned when I go to work. I got to be questioned if I live next door to them. I don't want to be answering them questions about being pro-black, being pro-African. I don't want to do that
Right.
because they won't like me. You
Right.
see. So
Right.
that hurts me more than me hurting my people.
Right.
So that's the mental thing that they're playing, the pain that they're going through. As you talk to a man that's been effeminized, he'll get more mad with you and hold a grudge longer because you tell him he's out of his masculinity, even wording. And he'll still want to take you out and don't even realize he's doing what you just said. You operating on emotion versus logic. You're not even you're responding, not even with a game plan, just responding. So it hurts more to eat and chew the food and swallow it, which is the facts. Because if it makes you throw up, that means that wasn't good. That means that you wasn't ready. You got so much poison in your system, even the good stuff couldn't even get in. That's why you need to detox, and detox ain't fun.
Right.
But I'm gonna have to get off of here. I've been set out of the car
No doubt. No doubt.
because I don't like to go around people who think they're in your mouth, listen to everything you say. So I stayed in the car because I'll have to go to somewhere. But it's always a pleasure to talk. You always have good topics, and the channel will grow. And because some people just don't want to listen to truths and facts.
Correct.
And it's not putting people down. It's not anything like that. That's why I always say, as a collective.
Right.
As a collective, you affect the collective, not just yourself. Even the people that make it and do well, depending on how they do when they're wealthy, still affects the collective. It's not just the poor criminal, it's the wealthy ones too, that still give so much to them and promote them and all that stuff and talk encode against your own collective people.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter the money you have, it's still your mentality.
Right.
Until that is shifted, poor, you know,
This said she
we're
would
just in
still
a
be here.
different class. We're still different classes of the same race of people.
Right.
Now we're in classism. Because in the long run, that's what really counts anyway, is if you can raise up your whole people to be respected as a collective, and you won't need any outside people. That's what Africa's now trying to see with their new leaders, is that, hey, we don't need all that stuff. If you're gonna make us accept this and make us do that, we don't need it. We'll go through the sanctions. We'll go through all that, because what we're learning is, and what we now realize, you're not doing that over in Arab countries. They have the death penalties for that, for the rainbow people. They have all that. Now you want to push against us because
Matter
you
of fact,
want
I'm
we've
gonna
been
do a show on that. I'm gonna do a
yeah,
show on that
yeah,
issue.
because we've been whipped as children so long, and now we do something that's been law and religious law in other countries that you get oil from. You dare to go over there and try that with them. You won't go to China or Russia,
Right.
but you come here, little poor little black folk in
And then
Africa
try to tell us
that you've
how we
been whipping and
run
beating
our
so
state of affairs.
long,
Right.
that we had a handout so long, you've taken advantage of our resources so long, that you figure you can whip us, beat us, or sanction us into submission. And a lot of them is now saying, forget it. We're not going to do what you say like that. Yeah.
No doubt, no doubt. So, family, appreciate you tapping in. Brother Wisdom never speaks. Family, if
Yes.
you are still out there, if you want to tap in, be part of the conversation, we're discussing whitewashing Juneteenth, or white people the face of the new federal holiday, right? We know Juneteenth is the latest federal holiday, became a federal holiday in 2021. We know that, unfortunately, for many of our brothers and sisters, they're now willing to celebrate Juneteenth because it's become socially acceptable to celebrate Juneteenth. It moved from being what we consider a black holiday, an African American holiday, to a federal holiday, and so many are now believing that that makes it acceptable to practice or celebrate. But also, I think we need to look at this issue of it becoming whitewashed. So if you all want to tap in, be part of the conversation, the link is in the chat. The link's in the description. I will stay on for a couple more minutes, and we can, of course, have that conversation regarding the whitewashing of Juneteenth, all white people the face of the new federal holiday, right? I would argue that it's important that in any space in which we're celebrating ourselves and our culture and our unique way of being African and human in the world, we have to make sure that we are in charge. I can recall when I was an undergraduate student, we would have a black cultural, the Black Culture Center, we would have bi-weekly movie nights. And so we was able to have one of the queen mothers, one of the elders in our community come, Mama Nazebo Glenn, right? Come, and she was able to speak about some of the struggles that they had in South Africa. She's a South African queen. And she told us that, hey, you could work with other racial ethnic groups of people, but you have to make sure that you're the one in charge. Because if you don't, what you will find is that before you know it, they will be the ones in charge, and they will be organizing you rather than you organizing them. So, and when others organize us, oftentimes, unfortunately, they're organizing us against our own best interests. So there's something to be cognizant of as we try to mitigate this issue of the whitewashing of Juneteenth, in which white people are seeking, in some aspects, to become the face of this new federal holiday. We've seen that, of course, with the Martin Luther King holiday. We've even seen that with Kwanzaa. So just something to be cognizant of. But once again, the link is in the chat, family. Hope you make sure you hit the subscribe and like button, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Please feel free to bless us on the super chat. We definitely want to be able to keep the show going moving forward, but we do need the funding, so that would be greatly appreciated. But once again, the link is in the chat, the link is in the description. If you want to tap in, share your perspective on Juneteenth. I know there was a brother who mentioned that he took issue with Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday, as he saw it as simply symbolism over substance. And we know that this tends to be a major issue in the realm of black politics, right? This issue of symbolism over substance, right? Symbolic political victories rather than substantial ones. So just something to be cognizant of as we move forward in terms of celebrating Juneteenth and making sure that it remains a holiday, a celebration that's rooted in the liberation struggles of African people, and not, of course, an embrace of everyone. Right? You could embrace everyone every day of the week, but that's not what Juneteenth is about. So we want to make sure that we we're honoring the spirit of Juneteenth. So that is all. No one's going to tap in. I'm going to log out. Appreciate you all watching. Until next time, y'all know what to do. Always bet on Black. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Appreciate you all for tapping in and watching Lumumba Speaks here on Juneteenth Eve, Juneteenth weekend. Happy Father's Day to everyone out there. Until next time, y'all know what to do. Peace.